I would open here with a general comment. No matter how you cut the mustard, um, whether we won both of the last two games or lost both of the last two games, I don't think we've executed as well, as a football team. And, whether we don't focus as well, plan as well, practice as well, rest as well, get emotionally ready as well, for whatever reasons, I think that the focus has to be on, not what has been lost, but what can be gained from the lessons learned from those circumstances and situations. And, we need to look forward in a positive way to what we want this football team to be remembered as, accomplish. And there's a lot of things moving forward that we can accomplish. So I know the questions are, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why do we call this play? Why do we call that play? Well, it still goes back to, why are we even in that situation relative to how we played the rest of the game? Why are we in the situation that we don't really respond as a team emotionally with any kind of aggressiveness or energy level until we get behind 20-0? So, all those are questions that, I'm certainly responsible for. I'm not trying to say that, but for whatever reasons, we have an opportunity now to, prove that we can be a good football team, and that's what we want to focus on. That's all we want to talk about, is we're looking forward. The only thing that we can gain from the past is lessons learned for all of us in terms of what we can do better, what we need to do better, and what everybody's got to make a commitment to in terms of trying to do better and accomplish something significant with what's left of this season with this team. So, we had Amari Cooper and Eddie Lacy as offensive players, John Fulton, C.J. Mosley as defensive players, and Cody Mandel on special teams. And the only real injury that we have is, John Fulton has a turf toe, and a pretty good one. And he actually finished the game with it, and, it really swelled up quite a bit and all that. So he may be very questionable, for this particular game. I don't think that we need to be worrying about who we're playing this week as much as we need to worry about how we're playing. And I think that's the focus. We have a lot of respect for every team that we play, and certainly Western Carolina has done a lot of good things this season. They've scored a lot of points, and but I think the focus for us needs to be on, what we're doing, how we're playing. That's the approach that I'd like to take with our coaches, our players, and everybody in the organization.
First question, last week at practice we saw Chris Black getting back and being more active with the team. I guess what's his status and how is he feeling kind of going forward right now?
Well, he's cleared for activity, but he's not cleared for contact. So he really is not cleared to play yet. He's just out there doing drills, and maybe in another month or so he would get cleared for contact, and then we could make some decision. I mean, I think it would be kind of foolish to play him. It probably would be a bowl game only type of thing, but we'll make that decision when the time comes. It's a medical decision right now.
I guess I know any fumble is too many for you, but TJ over the last couple of games has been on the wrong end of one. Do you worry about his confidence, I guess, going forward as a freshman with that?
Well, I think it comes down to the same thing, carrying the ball correctly. In one case, he didn't get the handoff correctly. In the other case, he was carrying the ball, kind of low in his belly and got popped. So I think the confidence should come in doing it correctly. And we have every faith, trust, and confidence in him that when he does it correctly, he's not going to fumble.
A few weeks ago, you mentioned that the team had played better at home than on the road. Is that something that you find to be a coincidence, or is it something you can more put your finger on?
I don't think you said that correctly. I said I thought the team played better on the road.
Did I flip it around?
Yeah,
I apologize.
You flipped it around. So, no, I really don't know. I really don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if it's the challenge, the focus, the players can be more serious because they're a little bit more confined. I really don't know, but the last 2 games we played one at home and one on the road, and I put both those in the same category. We didn't play as well as a team. You all don't think so because we won one and we lost the other one, and if we'd have won this one, you wouldn't be concerned either. I was concerned then. So, but, you all live in the results world out there. We kind of live in the process world. So, it's hard to get people to respond. It's kind of the bluegrass miracle phenomenon. You play bad, you win the game. Then the next week you get your ass kicked because nobody responded to playing bad because you won on the bluegrass miracle.
Also, I'm doing a
you probably don't deserve all that, but it's not personal.
I messed up the question. Also, I'm doing a story on the senior class. Can you talk about what they've meant to the program from a leadership standpoint, especially now being a pretty small group of 8 or 9 guys?
Yeah, well, this has been a really good group of guys, not a big group. Obviously, some of the guys would be a lot bigger group if everybody would have stayed in school and we didn't lose some guys to the draft and different things. And some guys have been redshirted, so a lot of things affect class sizes, but this group has been a very, very good group, been a very productive group, and certainly been a bunch of guys that have bought into the program and done everything that you could ask them for personally, academically, and athletically. So we're really proud of, not only the way this group has performed on the field, but how they've represented the institution and the program as well.
Last 2 games seems like there's been more opponent yards after contact. Is that a tackling thing for y'all, or how do you think the team has tackled these last 2 games?
Same way you do. You wouldn't be asking a question if it wasn't a concern. We've had more missed tackles. We've had more yards after catch after first contact or first missed tackle, especially on space plays. And that's one thing we've always been, is a really good tackling team and a good tackling secondary, and that is something that we need to improve on.
Yeah, I have 2, Coach. First, there's been so much focus, fairly or unfairly, on AJ, but talk about, he threw the 2 interceptions. Do you feel like he's hit a plateau the last couple of games? Is there anything with him other than just maybe better competition, or what's?
Well, I just think that, as a quarterback, you're always going to get maybe a little more credit than you deserve when things go well, and maybe get a little bit more of the blame when things don't go well. But I do think that the kind of competitor AJ is, my expectation would be is that, he takes the bull by the horns, learns from the lessons that he's learned in the last 2 games, and try to work on improving. I don't think there's any reason to say that he's reached a plateau. I think he needs to break through and continue to improve and not be satisfied where he is, and get the players around him to help him do that. So that would be, my approach with him relative to what he needs to do to actually play better, take the bull by the horns, and say, what does this team, what does this offense want to be remembered for in terms of how we play? Well, what we did was in the last game was, Vinny usually plays 5th defensive back, and Nick Perry had a bad shoulder, so Vinny also can play the 6th defensive back. So with the no huddle situation as it was in the game, we played D. Milner at star, John at corner in his place, and then Vinny was always the 6th DB, which was in there about 70% of the time. But we didn't feel like we could play nickel one way and dime another. So that's how John ended up playing. And John has played well when he's had the opportunity to play, so we thought he deserved a chance to play. And because of some injuries to some other guys, we made some of those changes, and and John did he's player of the week. He did a good job.
Can you talk a little bit about your defensive line rotation on who's specializing in what, and particularly Quentin Dial?
Well, you know, we played a little different in the last game. You know, we didn't play the normal. We tried to get 4 guys in the last game that were athletic enough to be defensive tackles. All right, and we actually took, you know, Hubbard and Xavier Dixon and you know, Denzel, and we played Ed inside, and we tried to get where we had 4 defensive ends and 4 inside guys that were the most athletic guys that could do their job because of the quarterback, you know, in terms of being able to have a chance to get him on the ground, or you know, be able to pass rush a little more athletically, or have a little more balanced pass rush. And so that was a little bit different, you know, in that particular game. And I don't think it's something that we would do, you know, all the time. It's just that circumstance, and that's the way we practiced all week. And, you know, Jesse was able to play inside because he's pretty athletic and runs pretty well. But, you know, some of the other bigger guys that we have, that Pagan was the other guy that, you know, played outside. But, you know, we just didn't want to, we didn't see an opportunity to play those guys much unless they were, if they were in 4 or 5 wideouts.
And also, you're talking about wanting to look back and see what everybody could have done better the past couple of weeks, including yourself. What could you have done better yourself?
Well, I think there's a lot of things. I think there's a lot of things that we all could do. You know, I think that we internally try to do those things. I think every player probably has things that he'd like to do better. And, you know, obviously when we don't play well, that means, did you plan well enough? Did you practice well enough? Did you practice the things that you ended up playing? Were the players prepared? Were they emotionally ready to play the game? You know, all those types of things, you know, get analyzed, not only from a big picture standpoint, but also from a group standpoint and individually, you know, with every player in the organization, as well as every coach. And when you don't play well, obviously, you need to do all those things a little bit better at every level, you know, at every level, from me right down to the players. All right, so, you know, that's what we try to analyze. That's what we try to do. You know, take an example of tackling. You know, we really tried to emphasize tackling last week, and we still had more missed tackles than we'd like. All right, so there are physical things and there are emotional things. And, you know, you can make excuses and say, well, the team was emotionally tired, so they weren't quite focusing or whatever like they needed to, but they played a heck of a lot better when they got behind 20-0. Everybody all of a sudden got emotionally better. So why couldn't it have been better at the start? That was the questions I asked myself. So.
Nick, moving on after a loss, does it become easier the further along you get in your coaching career, or does it become more difficult?
Well, I don't know that it's easier or more difficult. I think if you're a competitor, nobody likes to lose. So, you know, that's always, you know, difficult. I think, you know, my job is more of the concern of not how I feel, but how do we get the people in the organization to respond the right way, and not make me feel better by getting on everybody else, but by trying to get everybody else to do better so that we can learn from the lessons, grow from the lessons, not focus on the past, but how is this going to benefit us in the future? How can we gain something from our loss? And, you know, that's how that's how I try to focus on it. That's the challenge that I have. Not to say, how disappointed are you? How bad do you feel? You know, I catch it from everybody, man. My wife's mad. I mean, my kids are upset that everybody's. So I have to be like, yeah, I am too, but how am I going to affect everybody around me? All right, so that we respond the right way to the circumstance that we're in. Again, it's keeping the focus on the vision of what you want to accomplish, not the circumstance. And I think sometimes last week, you know, too many people, too many circumstances, maybe too many interviews, you know, maybe too much, why aren't I playing more? It could be a lot of things. But that's not the vision of the team. And when you have that, I mean, you heard Chuck Pagamo talk about circumstances and vision. That's what I'm talking about. His circumstances, he has a circumstance too. They have one as a team, he has one personally. But his vision is to see his daughters grow up and dance at their wedding. So that's the difference. That's what I'm trying to do. Keep everybody focused on the vision.
One more, if you don't mind. One of the criticisms you hear about your defense is lack of an effective pass rush. I mean, do you think that's accurate, and what kind of problems has that created for your defense?
No, I don't necessarily think that's accurate. You know, I don't think we have a dominant rusher like we had a year ago. I think we have guys that, as a unit and as a group, can be effective. I think it's a combination of not rushing on a consistent basis and not covering on a consistent basis that has been one of the problems that we've had. Because the last 2 weeks, again, you know, lots of issues not getting off the field on third down, which hasn't been a real factor all year long. But in the last 2 weeks, I mean, we gave up 14 points in the second half of LSU, going 0 for 7 on third downs during that time, and we started this game 0 for 7 on third down, all right, and got behind in the game because of it. You know, when you create those situations, you got to get off the field. And it's not just the pass rush. It contributes to it to some degree, sometimes. But it's also the discipline of everybody doing what they're supposed to do in rush as well as coverage. And when we pressure, people have to do what they're supposed to do. So to me, I would say it's more of a team thing than it is any specific group problem.
You mentioned after the game that you've had some one-loss teams win national titles. Does a loss make it easier? It's not controlling your own destiny. Does it make it easier or harder to kind of get them to focus on the process, on doing what they got to do instead of worrying about anything else beyond that?
Well, I think it depends on the team. I think it depends on the leadership. I think it depends on how important it is to everybody to sort of stay focused on the vision of what they want to accomplish, because that sort of affects your intensity, your mental energy, and all those types of things. Obviously, we didn't sustain it as well as we wanted to, and now we have to deal with the consequences of that and respond to the consequences of that in the right way. So, you know, and now we don't control what happens, but we can control what we do. And that's the focus that we obviously want to have.
Coach, like you've mentioned, you've kind of been in this predicament before last year. What can you take from what those guys experienced and you went through last year and apply it to this year?
Well, I think that the one thing the team did last year is they responded the right way. They were very positive, not about losing. I mean, they were upset about losing, but they responded the right way in terms of how they finished the season, and gave themselves an opportunity in the end, which worked out in a positive way, and they took advantage of it. They didn't have any control over it, but they did have control over what they did, and I think they did it the right way. And I think if the goal is to try to get this team to respond in a positive way as well.